Today we're going to talk about solving one-step addition and subtraction equations. Now what we do is we have to use the inverse property of addition to isolate the variable, and that's how we solve for the variable. So first let's talk about this inverse property of addition. If I have the integer 8, all right, the inverse of 8 would be negative 8. What this means is this is the additive inverse. If I do 8 plus negative 8, they're going to equal 0. If I have negative 3, the inverse of negative 3 would be positive 3, because negative 3 plus 3 equals 0. If I had negative 1/2, the inverse of negative 1/2 would be positive 1/2, because negative 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 0. So we're going to use this property to isolate the variable and solve for that particular variable. Let's start with the following example. Let's say I have m plus 8 equals 12. I know we could do this mentally and figure out what m is, but let's see what the process is. So first I'm asking myself, what am I doing to m here? I am adding 8 to the variable. So the inverse would be to subtract 8. Since this is an equation, I have to subtract 8 from both sides. So I'm going to now subtract 8 on the left, and I'm going to subtract 8 on the right. So I've taken the original equation, subtracting it on the right and the left. We do this at the same time. So positive 8 minus 8, those cancel, and m plus 0 just leaves us m, all right? And 12 minus 8 would be 4. And notice, if we substitute this 4 in up here, 4 plus 8 does equal 12. Let's look at another problem. If we have m minus 3 equals negative 5, again, we're looking at the side of the equation with the variable. So here, what are we doing to m? We're subtracting 3 from m, so the inverse would be to add 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So m minus 3 plus 3 equals negative 5 plus 3. So again, we have to do it on both sides of the equation. And when I simplify, these 3's are going to cancel. That's how I get that variable all by itself. And negative 5 plus 3 would be negative 2. So if we go back and double check that, if I put a negative 2 up here, negative 2 minus 3 does equal negative 5. Let's try another one. If we have negative 12 plus m equals 14, I'm looking over here again on the left side. Here's my variable. So what am I really doing to m? This is a minus 12. So I'm subtracting 12 on this side of the equation. So to be able to isolate that m, I have to do the inverse. So the inverse of subtracting 12 would be to add 12 to both sides. All right. So I'm going to add 12 on the left, and I'm going to add 12 on the right. Again, it's an equation, so we have to do it on both sides. So on the left, our 12's will cancel. There's our m, and 14 plus 12 is 26. So let's double check. If I substitute 26 up here, is negative 12 plus 26 14? Yes, it is. So we're on the right track. What if we have 28 equals 54 plus m? In this one, our variable is on the right side. We still look at it the same way. I'm just looking at this right side of the equation. What am I doing to m? This is really, and there's the invisible plus sign, okay? Remember, if it's the first term of an expression or equation, we know it's positive if there's no negative sign. So we are adding 54 here, all right? So the inverse would be to subtract 54 from both sides. So 28 minus 54, and 54 minus 54 bring down plus m. So again, we're doing it on both sides, left side and right side. So when we do 28 minus 54, I'm just doing my computation over on the left side. I don't want to get this messy where I'm working the problem. So this is an integer problem, and if you like, you can change that to same, add, opposite. So if I'm adding a positive and a negative, I'm really going to subtract the 28 from the 54. All right, so 54 minus your 28, and that's going to be 26, and my larger number is negative, so this would be negative. So I would now have negative 26 equals, and 54 minus 54 is your 0. We don't need to write that. And now we have negative 26 equals m. And again, if we take our negative 26 and substitute it up here in our original equation, 54 plus negative 26, does it equal positive 28? Yes, it does. Great. Now, what we're going to do, let's do a you try. So I want you to try these. So I'm going to write some down. Negative 21 plus n equals negative 16. Let's try 31 equals 9 plus n. And let's try a number 3. Negative 5 plus n equals negative 16. And number 4, 29 equals negative 13 plus n. All right, so right now go ahead and pause the video and do your work. When you have finished your work, turn the video back on and let's see how you did. Good luck. Okay, so let's see how we did. So here's our variable. We were subtracting 21. So the inverse would be to add 21 to both sides. So negative 21 plus n equals negative 16 plus 21. My 21s will cancel. N is by itself there. And so now negative 16 plus 21, I'm adding a positive and a negative, so I'm really subtracting the numbers. That would be 5. Larger number is positive, so this stays 5. So let me double check. If I substitute 5 up here, does negative 21 plus 5 equal negative 16? Yes, it does. Number 2, what was I doing here? I was adding 9 to the variable, so the inverse would be to subtract 9. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides of the equation. 31 minus 9 is going to be 22. My 9's cancel, so n equals 22. So again, let's check. If we put a 22 up here, does 22 plus 9 equals 31? Yes, it does. Number 3. Here in this problem, I was subtracting 5 on the left side of the equation. So the inverse would be to add 5. So again, we have to do this on both sides of the equation. And our 5's cancel. We get our variable by itself. And negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11. So let's double check. If I go put a negative 11 up here and substitute, negative 5 plus negative 11 does equal negative 16. And our last problem here, we were subtracting 13, so the inverse would be to add 13 to both sides. So 29 plus 13 equals negative 13 plus n. And 29 plus 13 is 42. These cancel, and that would be n. So let's just kind of double check our answer. So if we substituted a 42 in here for the variable, does negative 13 plus 42 equal a positive 29? Yes, it does. Great job, and thanks for checking in.